Welcome to another live edition of Deep Look. I am Charlie Eisenhood, the editor of Ultiworld. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner on this Tuesday, October 15th. We are 9 days away from Club Nationals. Keith, I have to say, I really like having Club Nationals 1 week later than it's been historically. Having it at the end of October and getting the pools and everything kind of sorted out at the beginning of October means everybody has time to prepare. Teams get an extra week of practice. We should have ideal circumstances for nationals this year.
I'd be curious how the teams feel about having the gap, because obviously I think it benefits us as people whose work revolves around this entire event. It helps us a lot to have the extra time to prepare, to settle in, and I certainly like it. I also, a hidden benefit for me, now it's not the same weekend as Lobster Pot, a popular New England tournament for fall college teams that I never get to go to because I always have been nationals. So I actually get to go to Lobster Pot this year. But I wonder how the players feel about it, if they're like antsy to get going and they're like, now we have this extra week to wait. But either way, it's certainly benefiting us, and I think it's going to make for a better experience for the fans too. I'm into it.
I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to start kind of getting you going, ready for Club Nationals this week. Our main preview show will be next week. We'll get to scheduling on that a little bit later. Please give us a like or a subscribe wherever you listen to the show. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit the thumbs up, give us a subscribe. Guess what, Keith? We are closing in on 100,000 YouTube subscribers. It might happen this week.
Incredible. Big number. I think they give you a big plaque for that.
I do think you might get a plaque. We're going to send it to our fantastic social media crew headed up by Lindsay Sue, who's producing the show today.
We should make a disc. Let's make a disc and send it to the YouTube headquarters. Just,
that's honestly a really good idea. That's a really good idea.
We're sending you a plaque.
I know for a fact that there's Google Ultimate Frisbee players. There's plenty of them. I've seen Google discs. I've seen Google jerseys. So maybe we can do something, nice for them that they can put on their wall since they're doing something nice for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, it's time to get to our trivia question of the week. Here we go.
This week's trivia question of the week. We're keeping it simple here. We're just taking the big view of history. Charlie, I want to take you back and for each division, I want you to tell me how many different club teams do you think have won a title, a national championship from each of the three divisions: women's division, mixed division, and men's division. I'll just to give you a point of reference, there have been 44 years of men's championship competition, 42 years of women's division competition, and 25 years of mixed division competition.
42, 25. Okay, I'm writing that down. I'm going to start thinking about it right now.
So we've got all three divisions, and let's see who's going to be the champion. Before we get to the answer, I want to make sure that we tell you about Kaimana, which is a tournament that Charlie and I certainly want to get the chance to go to at some point. It's an amazing event in an amazing place, and you can submit your team's bid now to join one of the most storied tournaments in Ultimate history, the Kaimana Classic. Kaimana returns for its 36th year over President's Day weekend. That's February 15th through 17th in 2025. And that's in the heart of Honolulu, Hawaii, just steps from Waikiki Beach. The tournament includes 3 days of games, sponsored parties, 6 meals, swag, and a little extras throughout the weekend too. And they make sure that every player feels that aloha spirit. So go to hawaiiultimate.com/Kaimana Classic for more information on how to submit your bid. That's hawaiiultimate.com/Kaimana, KAIMANA-classic. And that's classic with 2 Ks, one at the beginning, one at the end. No C's, 2 Ks. The tournament is accepting bids for open and women's division teams through October 18th. So you got a couple days left. Make sure to get them in now. Mahalo, nui loa, and see you there.
All right. I have my guesses written down. It's hard because I don't have a good feel for what happened before, like, 2010. Like, I mean, I know generally, right? I know there's been some big dynasties.
Mhm.
You've got the Condors back in the day, and you have your big, Fury run and all of those kinds of things. So, it's obviously not an enormous number of teams, but, let's see how close I get. So, in the men's division, 44 years of championships, I'm gonna say there have been 18 unique winners. Should we go one at a
18
time?
over 44 years. Yeah, well, we can take it
'Cause
one at a time.
we haven't
18
had a
over
repeat
44 years.
winner. We have not had a repeat winner in the men's division since 2010, 2011 Revolver. So we've got a bunch just from the last decade. So I'm going
That
18
that
total.
is true. Although Revolver also had 3 other titles during that run of non-repeats.
That is true. That is true.
So it is you're very close. It is 20 teams
Oh,
in the men's
wow.
division,
I thought I was gonna be too
have
high, if
taken it.
anything.
You were very, very close.
Okay, I'm gonna adjust upwards slightly my women's division pick then. I'm gonna say 13 teams in 42 years.
13, the magic number. That's my lucky number. It's my birthday number. And it is correct, Charlie. The correct number of
Wow.
women's division teams is 13. Charlie gets hits the nail on the head that time. Interestingly enough to me, at least, they've had four different champions in the last 5 years. So that means for the other 37, there were 9 teams that won. So
Crazy.
we got a nice mix going on right now. How
So let
about
me
the mixed division? Speaking of
let me
mixed,
try let me try to guess before we move on. Let me try to guess some of the teams. Obviously Fury. Um, I'm going before the recent years. So, you've got Fury and Brute.
Mhm.
Um, Riot won one back in the 2000s.
Mhm.
Uh, there was, like,
Won 2
Condors
actually.
women's teams too, okay. Condors women's teams back in the day. Um,
Mhm.
why am I blanking on the Boston team before Brute Squad? I can't say their name.
Think of a goddess.
Oh, Lady Godiva.
There you go.
Um, they won a bunch. They won a ton. But who are some other teams? I
9.
feel like I don't know. I've named, like,
We're
5.
going deep into the history here. 1994 champion San Francisco Felix. And if anybody in the chat
Fe
knows the
Felix.
old teams, then shout out to you. I don't know where I feel like Tony Leonardo is going to be summoned right now. Uh SoCal Crush Club. I literally don't know this team, but they won the title in 1989. And how about a college team? Charlie, you know the college team that won the first club championship? You think you know who that is? It's a West Coast team.
Um, I'm assuming it's not Santa Barbara, but that'll be my guess.
No, sorry, I'm misreading. I'm misreading. It is a team that has the same name as a college team now. It's Boston Blue. I was thinking that was
Oh,
UCLA
you're
Blue,
thinking
but it's actually
UCLA. Oh,
Boston
yeah,
Blue.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
College teams have won club championships, so I'm not totally out of my depth here. But yeah, okay. Mixed
All
division.
right.
What do you got?
First of all, Alex Atkins is in here claiming that I don't know ball, but I have just been perfect in the women's division and within 2 in the men's division. So you know what? Maybe it's Kins that doesn't know ball. Uh,
I need the Kins
my
guess. Kins, how many
my
mixed
final
teams do you think have won
guess
it in 25
for the
years?
mixed division, 25 years, there have not been that many repeat champions in mixed, at least in modern times. Um, but mixtape's got a couple, and Amp won 2, right? And then you had the Dragon three-peat. I'm gonna guess 17. There have been a lot of one-time champs in mixed. Maybe that's a little high, but I'll stick with it. 17.
You're again, Charlie, very close. It is 19 in 25
Wow.
years, which is pretty incredible. Uh,
My
Only a
original
couple
guess
teams
written
have
down on
have
paper
won.
was 18.
Oh, you
I
went
I
the wrong
adjusted
direction.
slightly.
Uh, Donner Party was the first repeat champion, and wild name. Like, okay, we're so far removed now, but it's kind of crazy that was a team name. To be honest, Shazam won 2 separate titles,
Yep,
a couple years apart. Blackbird had back to backs, and then
yep.
you mentioned the other teams that have won multiple titles, except for mixtape. Yeah, has the 2 titles, but I think that's every team that's won multiple titles at all.
Here's a question, Keith. What's the odds on teams that have previously won a title winning in all three divisions. What's the parlay odds this year? Not
Teams that
repeats
have
necessarily, just
previously
that have previously
right,
won.
just that it won't be their program's first title.
Because you got a
What
bunch of
teams
teams that could
are
win their
even up for
first.
that? So like Machine could win their
She
first
could win
this
her
year.
first. Rhino,
Phoenix has never won one. Flipside also, obviously, in their recent run has never won one.
in mixed, you've got like a bunch of teams.
Hybrid's never won one.
Yep.
Neither has Exist. Red Flag, obviously, they're very new, so they haven't won one either. Those are some of the top contenders who've never won one in mix. Yeah, I feel like you've got a pretty good shot that one of these teams is going to be in a position to win one. What's the parlay on all three? I don't know, plus like 350, something like that, maybe.
On all repeats?
On all repeats, or that we'll get a new team. I think I would say I think that we'll get a new team. It's like plus 300, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense because I was going to hammer the bet otherwise.
Yeah.
That's I might bet that still. I feel like it's closer to even on both sides, but I think I definitely like the chances of it being repeats in each division individually. So I'd have to sit down and think about it more deeply, but I feel like it's closer to like plus 175, plus 200. So
Okay,
if you want to give me
fair.
plus 350 on either side of it, I'll take the bet.
EMF brings up Disco Club. Didn't even mention them. Number 2 overall seeded mix.
That's true.
Obviously,
that would be wild, but not unprecedented to have a team pop up and immediately contend for a title. We've seen it plenty in mixed. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about our streaming schedule today and break down what we got coming up at the club championships. We will have Field Pass back this year. That means you can watch multiple games happening in one round all together on your screen. We have 4 games going per round, and we have another camera that's just going around the complex to find the best moments in case there's something awesome happening. We get the end of it for you. So we take a look at our Thursday streaming schedule starting at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We kick things off on the showcase field with Denver Johnny Bravo versus Chain Lightning. And Field Pass, you can see, Exist and Mixtape, Shame and Slow, Sprocket and Shine, all from the mixed division, as well as Machine versus Pony in the men's division. Keith, Bravo Chain should be a great battle to kick things off. 2 storied franchises. I still remember a great game between those 2 teams back in 2012, 12 years ago at the club championships. Give us your thoughts on that opening showcase matchup.
Two teams that are very athletic and I think a lot of fun to watch. So at worst, you should get a very entertaining matchup. They have played once this year, but it was at Pro Championships. So, you can take or leave how much you feel like you want to take away from that matchup, given that both teams were missing some key players. Bravo won that game 15-12. And I think it's clearly the stronger season. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. And has had the stronger recent track record at nationals. But I think Chain is obviously a scary 3 seed to have in your pool. I think you can make an argument that they're the scariest 3 seed. Depends on how you feel about Pony. But this is a very interesting pool in Pool C. I think that this is a great way to start off what should be a pretty electrifying pool with Rhino and Furious George also in the mix. But I am really high on this Bravo team right now. So I'm interested to see how they'll handle this first test.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Chain is that like we saw a full strength Chain look really good at regionals, and that to me makes them they're a little bit of an enigmatic team because I don't feel like we necessarily saw the best of what they have to offer during the regular season. Brett Holzmeyer, he's going to cook out there, and but Bravo is certainly going to be the favorite. Round 2, Sockeye versus Pony. That'll be free to watch right here on our YouTube channel. So it's a great time to sign up, subscribe. It's free, and hit the little notification, hit the bell. So when the game starts live, you get a notification and you're ready to watch. And then you've got Riot and Iris, Red Flag and Tower, Truck Stop and Double Wide, and Flipside and Traffic playing on the Field Pass side of things. Keith, Sockeye missed nationals last year. Pony has a tough pool, and yeah, a much older team. Sockeye super young, might be the oldest team in the division versus the youngest team in the division. That's possible. We'll have to maybe we'll run some age analytics once we get the full rosters and everything with ages. Pony will certainly be the favorite in that Sockeye game, but they need to prove it. Like Pony has not had a great year.
No, they haven't, and Sockeye has had a pretty strong year. They've looked pretty solid. Yeah, they're a little less tested against the absolute top of the division. They've played the likes of Condors and Revolver and RDU, Furious Double Wide. Like they've gotten in some decent nationals reps, but because they weren't in the top flights of the division, they haven't had the most challenging schedule, especially when you stack it up against what Pony has faced. But these are two teams that I think have a wide range of outcomes, and I feel like we know so little about these two teams in totality. It's really hard to say where they're going to be when they get to nationals, and that's what makes this compelling to me. Is I feel like I don't know what to expect from these two clubs.
All right. So later in the day on Thursday, we've got Minneapolis Dragon Thrust taking on Seattle Mixtape in a game that would have been, a championship game a couple of years ago. Doesn't quite have the same cachet in 2024, Keith, but still legacy programs with a lot to prove. Dragon's going to be the favorite, probably by a couple of points. But Mixtape still has some superstar athletes, and you never know. Maybe they make a little run at nationals. They're also pretty young.
Are they washed? I don't know. Like, are we gonna have the Mixtape wash conversation? I mean, they have played once this year against Dragon. Dragon won that 15-10 at PEC, and Dragon's a team considered a title contender. We haven't seen that next level from Mixtape this year, but I don't think anybody wants to count them out with Khalif Salam and the experienced players they have on the roster. So I know that the betting public, I think, is going to like Mixtape in general, not necessarily to take this game, but to be in it because they just have such a storied history and some really top level players.
Awesome field pass matchups that round. Fury Flipside, Hybrid Rally, Rhino Chain, and Bent Schwa as we start to get some 1-2 matchups in the pools. The last round of the day is the best round of all. Save the best for last. Brute Squad versus Molly Brown in pool play. Yes, they're going to be taking on each other in the showcase field. We've got Disco Club versus Hybrid, Revolver versus Truck, Scandal versus Bent, and Dig versus Ring on Field Pass. And that roving camera is going to be hunting for games, I'm sure. Brute Molly, I mean, what more do you need to say, Keith? Like, Molly's been the better team maybe over the last couple of years at nationals in aggregate, but Brute has dominated this matchup historically. I think they knocked Molly out in semis like 4 years in a row in the middle of the 2010s. So plenty of history there, and two teams that are really going to be hunting to win that game get the bye to quarters, most likely.
Big advantage on the line for the two teams. I think it's easy to predict that they're going to be battling for the top of the pool come this 1-2 round to wrap up the day. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of history there. I think that you can't get knocked out by a team 4 or 5 years in a row and not feel like it's a little personal. So I think that Molly Brown is going to have a little bit of revenge on their minds, even if the personnel has changed over the years. There's some Molly Brown stalwarts who were there for all of those L's. They would love to be able to get the win. Even when they did have their deep run, they didn't get to go through Brute Squad that year. So they have not really had that cathartic, hey, let's take down Brute Squad in a big game at Nationals moment. So this is a big chance for them. Charlie, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if you know this. Thursday of Club Nationals is the lowest productivity day at work of the year. It's been statistically
Not for
proven.
us.
The government actually keeps track of this. That's true. Friday, pre-quarters round in the morning, and then back-to-back quarters rounds. We will be streaming 5 of the 6 quarters in their entirety across our showcase and field pass fields. The 6th quarter in each of those rounds is going to have our roving camera on it. So if that game gets good, it's going to be right there on field pass for you. So this is an epic day. I mean, I think especially now with the level of parity that we're starting to see at the top of the club division, in the past, you had to wait for semis for anything to really be all that interesting at nationals most of the time. Now, pre-quarters and quarters can be the best rounds of the tournament. I think the last couple of seasons that's been true, even more than semis and finals, Keith.
Well, if I recall, last year we were super hyped up on quarterfinals. We were like, quarterfinals is going to be the new semis. This is going to be the round because the pool of teams is just getting deeper. And I feel like I recall being a bit disappointed, being like, quarterfinals didn't really bring all the fire we thought, and semifinals still turned out to be awesome, but quarterfinals did not, especially in the women's division. Is this the year? Are we finally going to get the absolute crazy quarterfinal rounds? I love that they're split up. It's going to make it a lot more digestible, but I'm expecting real fireworks because it really feels like the pools are deep in all three divisions. Unclear who's going to be the title teams. Maybe it'll still work out to be semifinals that gets everybody hyped, but there's something pretty compelling about the quarterfinals right now.
Well, let's take a look at our semis schedule. It's fairly straightforward. There's 2 games over at the original fields, the 2 men's games. And then at the stadium, we'll have back-to-back mixed semis, followed by back-to-back women's semis in the nightcap. And then on Sunday, we'll have the 3 finals at 10, 12:30, and 3 p.m. local time. Men's, mixed, women's in that order. So it's a great day. All of these games, by the way, are being streamed on ultiworld.com. There is no ESPN. There is no separate subscription. There is nothing else that you have to international. We're going to get to all these Q&A questions right now. So let's go ahead and dive right into that. So the first question is, how do I watch these games? Well, of course, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel to catch the free games. And if you want to watch the rest, as you certainly should, subscribe to UltiWorld. You can buy an event pack and just have a one-time package to watch the games, or you can get yourself a subscription, either a standard subscription or an all-access subscription if you want to watch every single game with a individual live stream for all the games. Standard subscribers get the showcase game each round, as well as the primary Field Pass broadcast. So it's a great value. If you really want to watch one game that's on Field Pass in its entirety, highly recommend all access, and it just gives you more options to put exactly which games you want where. And so that's the basics of how to watch. Next Q&A question is it available in Canada? Keith, is it?
It sure is. I know that getting international access to the final rounds of nationals has not always been easy. It's going to be simple this year. You go to ultraworld.com/live, make sure you're subscribed and you're logged in. Boom, you're watching it. So go ahead and grab yourself some poutine and enjoy it.
Europe, Australia, wherever you are in the world, no restrictions geographically. Easy single subscription to UltiWorld. Next question. Will the finals be streamed on ESPN or on UltiWorld? As I said, every single game, including all 3 finals, will be streamed on UltiWorld. Last year, the ESPN Plus broadcasts were produced by UltiWorld, but were streamed, of course, on the ESPN Plus platform. This year, everything will be on UltiWorld. There is no ESPN at all. I believe we have a couple more questions. What's our next FAQ? How many games do you get with a subscription? Great question. Well, you're going to get all the showcase games, including all of the semis and finals, and the primary Field Pass broadcast with a standard subscription. If you get an event pack or an all-access sub, you get all of that, plus all of the individual Field Pass broadcasts in their entirety. So if you really want to watch your favorite team and they're on Field Pass, you want to watch the whole game, start to finish, get yourself an all-access or an event pack. And the last question, are you going to stream Salt Lake Shrimp? Not on Thursday. At least we're not planning to have them on the schedule on Thursday. But the first-time Nationals qualifiers are near the top of the list for getting a stream if they make it to the bracket. So if we see them in pre-quarters or quarters, a much better chance that they're going to get streamed. And that goes for any of the teams that are not going to be streamed on day one. We look to get as many teams as we possibly can, as real limitations with the Club Nationals schedule. All right. Keith, anything to add?
Should be exciting. Another round of Field Pass coming up, which is a great way to catch a bunch of different games and hang out. And Field Pass is a good way to like feel like you're involved in the conversation. But I highly recommend, if you are a subscriber, get in the Discord. It is basically the best place to have live conversations about what's going on at Nationals. Our reporting crew is in there dropping updates from the fields. So if you really want to get the full Nationals experience, get all the information, be a part of the conversation, highly recommend that you join our Discord, which is available for our subscribers.
Yeah, if you're at the standard or all access level to watch video, you also get into the Discord. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, the voice of Ultimate, Evan Lepler, joins us live on Deep Look. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Antoine Davis. You take the field with basically two things, yourself and your cleats. That's why you need the best on your feet. For me, I want a grip to handle my change of direction and stick with my person on defense. I want my cleat to be light to help me play long points and accelerate to get to my top speed. That's why I love my Tokay cleats. They're specifically designed for Ultimate, with a cleat pattern for the game's sharp cuts and a durable, breathable, supportive build to keep your feet and ankles protected and comfortable for longer. That's why I've been using them for 3 years. They're my best ally on the field. You put your best self on the field, so make sure you're bringing the best with you at tokay-ultimate.com. That's TOKAY-ultimate.com. Tokay, sky the limits.
Whether you're gearing up for a TCT event or Summer League, YCC competition or Masters, Breakmark can help your team get kitted out. Their bundles get you everything your team needs, and each one comes with a free reversible and 5-panel hat. Whatever your game, Breakmark.com is the place to get your team ready this season.
Welcome back to Deep Look. Joining us now, the voice of Ultimate himself, Evan Lepler, on Deep Look with us today. Evan, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Charlie. Hey, Keith. Great to be back with you. In advance of this conversation, I was thinking about what was my first time on Deep Look. And I know the answer, Charlie. I'm curious if you can go back in your annals to think of the first time you ever asked me to come on the pod.
Oh my gosh. As we talk, I will try to actually ascertain the answer to that question. I think it's probably been almost 10 years, probably like 2014, 2015 would be my guess, but I don't know. I will have to look.
So yeah, it was right after Beach Worlds in Dubai in 2015.
Okay.
And we went down the rabbit hole of the spirit timeout. Remember the Eli Friedman block that Canada called a foul on in the mixed semifinal on Universe? Anyway, we went down a rabbit hole that day. We can try to stay more on topic today if you'd like.
Well, there's been so much progress made with, the bad calls at the international level. Game advisors have really solved the problem for us here in 2024. Evan,
Completely.
I want to. 2013, you got hired to commentate at the Club National Championships for the first time, alongside Mike Cousins. I think was your original co-host back in the day. I really liked Mike Cousins.
He was great.
Can you? It's been more than 10 years now. Can you just kind of reflect a little bit on what this has been like? You playing Ultimate in college, and then becoming a broadcaster, and then joining up and becoming kind of the preeminent broadcaster in Ultimate now for over a decade.
Yeah, Charlie, I appreciate the question. And I in a way, I'm speechless when I think about how serendipitous the journey has been, just because I didn't play Ultimate before college, and it was pretty fluky that I started playing Ultimate in college. I had thrown a Frisbee before, but I didn't know what a flick was, let alone had I ever thrown one. So, I went to college and just saw Ultimate as an opportunity to, go play on the quad on a nice day barefoot. And next thing I knew, it was my life in college and it became a passion. And then in 2013, when someone forwarded me the USA Ultimate job posting, to think about, I was in the caverns of minor league baseball at the time. And when you're doing minor league baseball, it's like 140 games in 150 days. And you're just so tunnel visioned in what you're doing at that moment that I was like, I can't possibly, leave my baseball team to go to Madison, Wisconsin for 4 days, Memorial Day weekend. But 24 hours later, I applied, and, the rest is history. It's been really, really special to get to work, USA Ultimate Club Nationals, College Nationals, to get to work with the AUDL, now the UFA, to broadcast so many world championships. It is a responsibility that I take very seriously, that I'm very proud to be the voice behind so many of these memorable moments. And I really think of myself kind of as a caretaker to try to catalog the history of these exceptionally exciting moments that we'll remember forever, and try to do right by the players and fans. So yeah, another great opportunity coming up next week, working with y'all in San Diego, and excited to be part of Club Nationals once again.
We're definitely looking forward to having you on the crew, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Nationals as well. But you now have a new official position with the UFA as their director of broadcast strategy. So they didn't want to give you the Voice of Ultimate business card, I guess. They did give you a different job title. But what do you feel like is going to change for you in your involvement with the UFA and in this role? And what are you planning on bringing to the table for 2025?
Yeah, the biggest difference is that I'll be doing more work for the league in the off season, in the fall and winter. In the past, I've done more, full-time work in the spring and summer in terms of broadcasting and writing and doing other stuff. But now I'll be, attending all the meetings with the staff, thinking big picture, producing more content. Charlie, I know I was just reading some of your AMA on Reddit, and you talked about how, video content on YouTube is such a big deal in the world of content. It's what people are looking for right now. So creating some more of that type of content for the UFA as well, in the coming months is something I'm excited about. And also, trying to level up the broadcast crews around the league. The Empire broadcast with Charlie producing and Keith Rayner on color don't need much advice. They do great work, but not every broadcast around the league is as buttoned up as the Empire show on watchufa.tv. So, I'm always hesitant to give advice in those sorts of situations, because I've often said in many ways I still feel like I'm just trying to do the best job I can and figuring it out as I go along. But I also feel like I have a decade of experiences to rely upon, and, broadcasting experience across numerous other sports as well. So yeah, excited to take another step with the UFA. I probably wouldn't be in this role if not for Tim DeBile becoming a commissioner. He is someone that I've worked closely with for a long time. He's the one that brought me in over a decade ago now, and to be able to further collaborate with him and help kind of lead some kind of content ideation teams with him and others in the league office, like Adam Ruffner and Daniel Cohen and Luke Johnson, and others as well. Some names that you don't know, but maybe you will know in the future. So yeah, in terms of what we should expect for 2025, I did not attend the owners meeting a couple weeks ago, but they recently had their owners meeting down in Atlanta. I know there's some interesting, spicy interdivisional matchups that are in the work. I know that I am hopeful, it's not definite yet, but I am hopeful this year to bring back Free Friday Frisbee every single week with a marquee game Friday night to kind of jumpstart the weekend in the league, which will allow us to, not only highlight two top teams in a consequential matchup, but will then allow us to preview some of the stuff that's coming up Saturday, Sunday on watchufa.tv. So, 2024 without question was the most exciting year in the league's history. I don't even think it's like subjective. I think it's objective in terms of the competitiveness. Every team had at least 2 losses. There was so much suspense and unpredictability down the stretch. So, there's no reason to believe that it won't be just as juicy next year. And excited to help set the table and get the season started next April.
How is it different to broadcast UFA games versus coming to Club Nationals and doing a weekend at Club Nationals?
The biggest difference is that, for the most part in the past, I've only done the semis and finals at Club Nationals. So I go into Thursday having, not no idea which games I'm going to call, which teams I'm going to call, but, you don't know who you're going to broadcast. And upsets inevitably happen across divisions. Preparing for one game a week is kind of like playing for one game a week. You get to prepare in a different way. You get to dive deeper into the stats. You get to have conversations with players and coaches that, as you guys know, when you're doing Club Nationals, it's kind of a scramble from one game to the next. And you're just trying to stay kind of afloat and above water, especially like during those 4 straight semis or 3 straight finals, and a game goes long and you're like, all right, we're off the air at 2 o'clock. Can you be back on headset at 2:10 to record the next open for the game that's going on at 2:30? And it's like, okay, I got to get some water. I got to go to the bathroom. I got to make sure I learn how to pronounce all these names from this team in the mixed division that I've never seen before, that had no business being in the semis as the 14 seed coming into the tournament. So yeah, the Club Nationals is a very different experience, but it's also fun, like to walk around the fields and be on the sideline and get to schmooze on the sideline with people I know and people I don't know. Like that's something that I really enjoy every single year, and looking forward to being on the sidelines next Thursday morning, 9 days from now in San Diego.
I feel like there's been a lot of conversation around the nature of like semis and finals, kind of the stadium game versus the old school at the fields. Everybody's crowding the sidelines, atmosphere, and we still get some of that during certain rounds of the club and college championships. And I know you like to soak some of that into. What do you prefer from your vantage point? Do you prefer the stadium atmosphere? Do you think that's better for spectators, or do you think that the more on the ground grassroots style is even better for people to participate in?
Keith, the obvious answer is it depends on the stadium. Breese Stevens Field at Madison doesn't have a track going around the field. Like everybody is super close to the action. College Nationals were great at Breese Stevens Field. When you have just kind of the detachment of the big tall stands and then the track around the field, and then players sometimes aren't even allowed to be kind of within 10 yards of the sideline because of camera positions or whatever, it does zap some of the energy away. It changes the feel. So I get the nostalgia for the old time feel. I think, for television, just having the infrastructure to do a top notch broadcast at a field site is really challenging, as Charlie could explain better than I can from a technical standpoint. And just, having the broadcasters on a platform in the middle of a downpour is precarious compared to being in a press box. And, that goes for all the equipment that you use and everything that works with that too. So I get both. I enjoy being part of both. I think, the caliber and quality of the stadium matters in this conversation. I'd be fascinated. I remember what you guys were saying last year about, bringing in stands to just build them around that main showcase field at Surf Cup in San Diego. Like, that's super intriguing. That could be really fun. It also could be crazy expensive to bring in all that portable stadium. And it also could be, precarious if there's bad weather or whatever else may be. So, yeah, I don't have a good answer, even though I can ramble about not having an answer for a while.
All right. First of all, there will be no more mentions of downpour at any point during this interview. So zip it up with that. Second of all, it was it was considered, I know it was seriously considered by USAU to do what you just described, which is bring in stands and create more infrastructure around the showcase field at the Surf Cup. I don't know the specifics as to why they decided not to do that, and that they're going to be returning to the high school stadium that they used last year. Probably because that would be my guess. But other things as well, it's like parking is more of a headache. and it's just like not as conducive to like casual people who are coming to watch, perhaps. And the high
Yeah,
school
if you
stadium that
sell
we
a
use is.
ticket to, sorry to interrupt, Charlie. If you sell
Go
a
ahead.
ticket to a game, you want to give someone a place to sit. I mean, that's a thing in the UFA, I know, in terms of like championship weekend spots. So this spot would be great, but only has this many seats. And we hope to have more people than that. And people deserve to expect, if you attend a sporting event, to have a place to sit, which isn't necessarily just on the grass or standing on the sideline.
Here is your seat over here in the muddy grass. No, it's never muddy in San Diego, to be honest. It's dry. So I want to ask you, what advice would you give? And you're going to have an opportunity to potentially give this advice now that you're in an even higher sort of seat at the UFA. What advice would you give to the UFA about how you would like to see things change in terms of the structure or anything like that, that maybe you take from USAU competition and the legacy of the long history of Ultimate in the club side, and vice versa? What would you tell USAU to take over from the UFA?
It's an interesting question. To be honest, there's I don't know if there's a way for me to like deliver this answer without coming off as a shill for one organization versus the other. But I mean, I think the UFA is doing a lot right in terms of how it's marketing players, in terms of creating events, both for fans and broadcasting, and creating a more fan friendly, viewable product. Like the time between pulls still kills me in USAU. The fact that we still use those loud air horns for halftime cap and an end of game cap drives me bonkers. It makes me so angry. The only thing that makes me angrier about Ultimate, and this is true, is when two top teams just lost in the quarterfinals, their season is over, their dream is over, and they're told by someone, you're on field 14 in a pro flight qualifying game, opening pull in 15 minutes. Can you get over there now? That drives me absolutely insane. Like, we need to build in more time. Quarters deserve some breathing room. Like, every single year, a team goes to Universe. I mean, the Pony Ring game stands out from last year just because it went for a really long time. There were serious injuries. Pony has just lost their season as the favorite. Sam Little's at the hospital. Jeff Babbitt has another concussion, and they're being told, you got to go play double wide now. For a pro flight qualifying game. The opening pull was actually supposed to be 5 minutes ago. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Let's change that and not force teams to play just moments after their national championship dream is over. So stuff like that bothers me about USA Ultimate. I think you should be able to sub on timeouts. I know you approve of that as well. I hear and understand the complaint that people have about field size in the UFA. It really doesn't bother me. And I think it has made the game in a lot of ways interesting in different ways. I know people say that there's less pressure, but we still see incredible defense in the UFA. We still see in some ways more complicated schemes because you have more time to practice and plan for a specific opponent. So, I think that the UFA game is doing a lot right. The shorter stall count as well. I've heard the argument that, well, a 10-second stall count in USAU is actually on average 7 seconds. And I hear that and I say, okay, fine. Maybe in actuality that's true, but then is everybody cheating because we don't know how to count to 10 properly? So, there's look, I am not against self-officiation by any means. It's the thing that, as much as anything else, that drew me into the sport, the concept of spirit of the game, and my early college tournaments, like feeling that out and getting the sense for how to be a spirited player in various ways is something I think back on really fondly. I also think that having third-party observers or referees is absolutely essential for the biggest games, as we have shown time after time. And I think for the fan standpoint, keeping the game moving is essential as well. Not only to fit in certain time windows for broadcasts, but also just to be entertaining. And I say all this while also acknowledging Club Ultimate isn't necessarily for the fans. It's primarily for the players who are paying for the opportunity to compete at, what has been the highest level in our sport internationally, U.S. Club Nationals, forever. So I get it. And there's a fine line to balance there. And my perspective is more from the TV fan side. And I have a ton of respect for those that say, no, that would detract from the experience because of, we're not doing this for the fans. We're doing this for ourselves and our teammates and et cetera. So, yeah, I think that answers your question, or hovers around an answer to your question.
I want to get into, we got nationals coming up. I know we're all pretty excited and we're all fully in prep mode. But I do want to ask, coming into nationals, we've had a lot of conversation about this being a wide open year. In your mind, who do you feel like are the favorites to take down the championships in each of these divisions? Who are you seeing as the team to beat in each of the divisions?
I get why the narrative is it is wide open, but I think there are three pretty clear favorites, which isn't to say the favorites will all win. But look, BFG has lost one time in the mixed division during the season. They are the clear favorite. Now, obviously, there's volatility in the mixed division. The number one seed, I think, won in the mixed division last year with Shame, right? They were the one seed going in. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, like it's rare that the one seed goes through pool play undefeated. So, but I think you have to look at them as a clear favorite. And I look at Fury and Truck Stop in the women's and men's divisions, respectively. I do think the women's division is especially interesting. Charlie, I was thinking about this morning. We need to create a graphic with all of the different international players on all the women's teams, because that is the storyline atop the women's division. And I did want to kind of turn this question back at you. And I'll talk about truck in a moment.
Real quick. We have that graphic. It's already built.
Excellent. Wonderful.
Continue.
So I got thinking about this in a few different ways. You guys are big basketball fans. There hasn't been an American MVP in the NBA for like 6 years. It's been over a half decade between Jokic and Giannis and Luka. It's been a long time since there's been an American-born MVP. And there probably isn't going to be one this year unless Anthony Edwards really steps up. What has happened to the American women? Because 3 out of the top 4, I believe, in the Ulti World Top 25 are internationals. 4 of the top 7. And I don't know if do we count Brito Santos as non-American? There's the Canadians, there's a gray area there. But like the key players for almost every women's division team are from outside of the country. I mean, even like Fury, we don't even think of that way, but Skazieti and Imanishi are critically important for Fury. Obviously, the Cardenas sisters are the 2 best players in the world. Brute Squad, Lev Kovalchuk has been their best player. They had Floor from the Netherlands. They had Lily from Germany as well. I just find it fascinating. And I'm curious if you guys have really had a discussion about, like, aside from Claire Trope, no woman is really even in the conversation. Maybe Anna Thompson, who is also, I think, in the top 5. But it's just fascinating to me, like, when America is clearly the best country internationally, and I say that while acknowledging they probably should have lost to Colombia in the final in Australia. So, but by and large, American Ultimate has been dominant over the course of many decades. What's happening in the women's division where so many international women are, if not the top players, among the top players for their particular teams? Curious to get your guys' thoughts on that.
My immediate thought is selection bias a little bit, which is to say that we are the international players who are getting rostered and choosing to come over and play in the US, not being paid to do so, right? They're, spending their own money to come and be here. They are the best players from around the world. And so we're like seeing the 10 best players from like outside of the United States coming to play in the US. And as a result, they are matching up at an extremely high level with the best American players. So that's my initial thought. Now, if you want to get deeper and say, well, but wait, like you look at the top 10 players in the women's division right now, half of them are international players. What's up with that? I think that speaks a little bit more to development paths in some other countries have made it such that you can have something like the Cardenas twins arise because they started playing when they were in middle school. And we're still seeing that kind of thing happening in communities where that exists in the US. Chloe Hakimi is on that path. She's on that trajectory. Now, maybe she doesn't have quite the ceiling potentially of the Cardenas twins, but I think you're seeing that like where there's middle school ultimate happening, we're seeing this amazing development path. And, Jack Verju came up through the Seattle scene. And, you can pick your players. Like those players are coming up in the US, but there's not necessarily the same depth of young players coming up. And I know that France has added middle school and high school ultimate in a serious way. There's a lot of money behind it in France. And what are we seeing? We're seeing the French teams starting to churn out high quality players and starting to beat the US at the junior level, for instance, this year. You're seeing that same thing in Italy. You're seeing this in places around the world, and that is generating this quality. Now, I think there's also just some like random variance to it. Like, look at Japan. Japan has some great players, but this is not the same as we saw 10 years ago when Japan, arguably had the second best teams on the planet, or at times the best team on the planet compared to the US. And like now they're good, but not. And obviously they had an awesome Worlds, the men's team particularly, notably making it further than I think anybody expected. But their run is probably coming to an end at that highest level. And why is that? I mean, I can't speak to the specifics of each individual country, but I do think that, to me, it speaks to the need for what we're doing in the United States to be focused on that younger level, not just for growing the sport purposes, but for developing talent in a way that we're starting to get some of those superstar players. That's my thoughts. I don't know if you have thoughts, Keith.
I agree in some senses that I also think that it's a bit of an aberration just looking at the women's division. I think that you look at that group of players and so many of them come from that Colombian program that's been developing a core group of players for so long that they kind of throw off the math a little bit. I think if you were to remove them or make them more of your average high level countries representatives, then you probably would see something that's a little more like the men's division where you have maybe 1, 2, 3 players who are around that top 10. So I think that if you were to take the Colombians out of it, which are you're seeing a magical kind of special thing that happened with Colombian Ultimate that I don't really think anywhere else could replicate. I think you'd have to get lucky to be able to replicate what happened in Colombia and in any other country to get the talent and the dedication and the tools and the opportunities to play. Those players having access to US Ultimate so frequently, I think really helped them develop as well. So the rise of Colombian Ultimate, I mean, imagine if Elizabeth Mosquera hadn't gotten hurt, like we could be talking about even more Colombia players in the mix. I do wonder where the scales will tip as far as what the global playing population looks like. Like at some point, I'm sure that the US and maybe even just North America had more players than the rest of the world combined. But I got to imagine that scale is really starting to tip. And so you're also going to start to see the talent pool being larger for the global population, which makes sense when you're comparing versus one country, even a large country that founded the sport. So I think you're going to continue to see this trend, but the question is, are you going to see the depth develop elsewhere that we've seen? Because I think that we've proven that the top level players in other countries can hang with the best players in the U.S.
Yeah, those are good answers. And I think it's also fair to say Manuela and Valeria are outliers. They are, you want to say one of one, but obviously two of two, a very special two that were playing in world championships, like when they were 16 years old at not U24 or U20 worlds, but the world championships in London. They're in the finals at age 16, which is ridiculous. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting storyline in the women's division for sure. And in the men's division, I mentioned I think Truck is a clear favorite. I don't put any stock into the results from late in the season when they're missing, most of their offense and a third or half of their team. I think they've been the best team in the country the last 2 years. Now, that doesn't always mean you're going to win. People like to say they lost in the quarters last year. They obviously lost twice in pool play last year. But I think Truck is the clear favorite in the men's division. But it is level. Like, there are a lot of different men's division teams that can win it. And the other question that I had as I turned the table on you guys, there's an interesting narrative brewing subtly, I think, about who is the best player in the men's division. Because I know Joe White won the Ulti-World staff voting, and I don't have too many quibbles with that pick, except for the fact that we haven't seen it in the biggest games from Joe White. Or Machine, for that matter. Christian Boxley, really thrilling, talented player, great guy in their system. He's not Bo Kittredge, and which isn't to say that he isn't more skilled and talented in a way than Bo Kittredge. But like in the history of men's ultimate, specifically in the past decade, like there was a time when Bo was clearly the guy. And Bo and Ashland together. And then I think Jimmy Mickle became the guy. And then in a way, Dylan Freechild was the best player on the 2017 World Games team. And Chris Kocher had a case as the guy. And now there's a bunch of guys, but I'm wondering, will somebody step up at Nationals next week to become the guy? In a way that we saw Bo or Jimmy or Dylan, like it could be Michael Ing with Revolver. It could be Rafi Hayes with Rhino. It could be Joe White, or it could be Don DeMarais, or like there are a lot of different guys that it could be. Mac Hecht, could he have an unbelievable weekend? That's the most interesting storyline to me in the men's division is, will a guy step up? And is that the recipe to winning? Because
I was just going to ask
I don't think that's Truck Stop. Yeah, that's not Truck Stop's recipe for winning. Like their recipe for winning is not Boxley being the guy. It's him working with Tyler Monroe and Cole Jurek and Jacques Nissen and Johnny Mawks and Gus Norbaum and everybody else on that O-line to be as unstoppable an O-line as I feel like we've ever seen in the men's division and in the history of Ultimate. But yeah, I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on that as I turn this podcast on you guys, Phil Simmons, Chuck Klosterman style.
Well, I think you're right that there's not somebody who is so overwhelmingly clearly number one right now that there's not a debate. Boxley not playing for the Breeze this year, and then the Breeze getting ceremoniously bounced from semis at UFA Championship weekend is a nice little maybe case for him. But look, I think Joe White has the skill set combination to be that next guy that you're talking about. But I will agree with you and say that Joe White has yet to actually do it and to show that the mental side of the game is also locked in a way that I know that it was for Bo, that I know that it was for Jimmy. So yeah, we'll see. Keith, what do you think?
I got to disagree with you guys, and I'm with the chat who's also said this. Joe White was lights out last year at Nationals. I don't know what you guys were watching. I know that they didn't win. I'll give him that. They didn't win. He was the best player on the field for both the semis and the finals. I mean, he was absolutely tearing it up. So I know that he's had some bad results in the past. I know that he has the Carlton Kirk, probably also colors how we look backwards at there being the guy on the title teams is that it's easy for us to remember those players playing in indelible moments and winning the big games. And we maybe overlook players who might have been the best player in the division in, I don't know, 2008, and they weren't on the title team or whatnot. That could be the case in some of these situations. But I think that I said it during our discussion about the top 25. I do think that the throne is unclaimed, and I would put Joe White in position to take it right now. But I think that it is up for grabs. We could see somebody really emerge at nationals, and I don't know necessarily that's going to coincide with winning a club title. That's one of the things that I think is great about Ultimate is that it takes more than one player to win. I mean, you can't throw it to yourself. So unless you're going to go out there and get 15 Callahan's, then you're going to need some help. So it's going to come down to who has the best team and plays well at the right time. But I do think that conversation about I don't know that we're going to settle it. I know it'd be great to be like after nationals, it's obvious, but I don't think it's going to be a settled conversation by the time that we're done at nationals. I do want to. Before we let you go, Evan, I do want to hit you with one question that actually is coming from our subscribers, our mailbag question of the week, because I think that you're in a unique position to answer. You probably have some thoughts to share here. You mentioned earlier about that the USA Ultimate Club Championship has often been considered the most competitive tournament in the world, at least annually. So when will a pro championship, if ever, become more desirable than a club championship? What's the timeline look like?
I think it could happen in the next 12 to 20 years. Because I think unless USA Ultimate makes a more targeted attempt to market their players and teams, the UFA is lapping USAU in terms of introducing their product to young kids who are learning the game and want to be fans of the game. And it's not fair to ask like club teams to market themselves because they're paying to play. You're lucky enough to get score updates on a Twitter account, let alone having highlight videos of players or articles it's hard to be a fan of Club Ultimate. And even with Ultiworld doing an unbelievable job that you two and Edward and so many others do covering our sport, it's hard to follow. And look, you guys want to be fair and equitable. You want to cover everything. But sports are driven by stars and by great teams and by rivalries. And we just don't make it that easy to be a fan of Club Ultimate. So I think more and more younger kids that see Ultimate for the first time are getting introduced to it by UFA highlights and going to a local game. And, that fan environment can also bring you in to be a fan. So I think I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to happen, Keith. And it's a fair, maybe the tradition and prestige of club lasts forever. But I don't know, it could also having something to do with the UFA, getting a certain sponsorship or television deal that brings in more money that trickles down to players. And then players prioritize it more because they're making on average, I don't know, 20 or 30K a season, as opposed to the, $500 to $1,000 that most players make per season now. So that could have something to do with it as well. And I don't want to stand here and predict when that's going to happen for the UFA. I think that matters. As you guys both know, there's not a ton of money in the Ultimate community, and the Ultimate community is smaller than everybody thinks it is. To have 10,000 people watching a game live in Ultimate is really rare. And it's also a rounding error on Monday Night Football. It doesn't matter whatsoever. 10,000 people. Are you kidding? So Yeah, I think like obviously players will say the club matters more, but to see the looks of the guys on the Minnesota wind chill, like man, that mattered a crazy amount to them. I know that you did a sideline talk podcast with Mike Denardis, Charlie, before they won the title in 2021. So it was like 18 or 19 or 20, sometime in there. And he said then that winning a Flyers championship would mean as much as a ring title. And this was before that they had won either one. So I don't want to like it can mean different things to different people, but I don't think it's a crazy idea. And I'm not like rooting for pro to mean more than club. Like club means a lot to me, having broadcast every club championship since 2013. Like I think there's room for both to exist. I love being involved in both. And I don't necessarily look at it as club versus pro. I think that there are some things that both organizations could do to help each other out and to improve each other and learn from each other. Because, look, Ultimate's a great sport. It's fun to watch, it's fun to broadcast, it is telegenic. There's an audience for it, and that audience is growing. Now, is it growing fast? Not as fast as we would like, but it is growing. And I think there's a lot of things that we can do, especially in the next 4 or 5 years through the end of this decade, to take Ultimate to a new level. I'm excited to meet the new USAU CEO. All I know about him is what you guys have said and what the USA Ultimate article that introduced him pointed out. But seems like a really interesting background. And I would echo all the things that y'all have said through the past, that we need to keep growing the sport through grassroots and youth and build that pipeline, because like as fans of the sport, which I think the three of us all are, the pipeline is fun. It's part of the storyline. Who are the young players coming up, the young cities, the hot scenes. Like 4 or 5 years ago, you guys are talking about Salt Lake youth, and now everybody wants to see shrimp. It's the biggest storyline going into nationals.
Shrimp? You're picking shrimp to win it all, right?
Shrimp.
Right, Evan?
I love to eat shrimp. So they are my favorite team that is also a food at nationals.
All right. Well, hey, Evan, always appreciate having you on. Thanks for joining us today, and looking forward to seeing you in about a week.
Really excited to work with you guys, collaborate with you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Evan Lepler with us here on Deep Look. Make sure you give us a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't. We are looking for a subscriber to volunteer to go against me and Keith in our picks contest. So this is your chance to make your voice heard. If you're an Ultiworld subscriber, you can hit us in the chat right now. You can just type in enter, or you can hit us up in the Discord, which you have access to, of course, as a standard or all access subscriber, and let us know in the podcast channel that you want to be one of the people under consideration for a chance to make picks against me and Keith in our Club Nationals picks contest. Keith, what do we got for our subscriber bonus out the back this week?
Well, Charlie, it's one of the best times of year. It happens twice a year, although we got 3 this year, sort of. It's time to play some games, and it's hashtag the game. This will be our second one of the year, along with college. Charlie and I are going to be talking about who we want to pick, who are the teams to look at in the game coming up for these club championships.
I'm excited. Can you give us a quick rundown on the game rules? Because the game is going to be out for people to make their picks in very soon. So just like real quick, like what's the scoring? How does it work?
Yeah, hashtag the game. So you're going to pick 5 teams. You're going to get teams from every division on your roster. And the teams that are the top seeds in each division, they're going to cost $4. Teams that are at the bottom cost $1. And you've got 3 and 2 between. And you have $14 budget to work with to build out your 5 teams. The more games teams win, the more points they get for you. So you don't have enough budget to just take the best teams, to take 5 of the best teams. You got to find some underdogs you think are going to score some upsets, or maybe you want to load up your roster with underdogs. There's even a bonus if you come in at $11 or fewer on your budget. So you want to go for some underdogs, you can do that. Get some extra bonus points. There's also a couple of bonus questions to help you earn some extra points too. And that pretty much encapsulates the game in a small summary.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about our hashtag the game, sleeper picks, and more in our Out the Back segment live in the Discord immediately following this podcast. So that's going to do it for this week. Club Nationals preview show with a breakdown of all the pools and our picks for the bracket, semis, finals, winners is coming your way next week. We are broadcasting on a different day and time. We will be going on Monday, not on Tuesday, at noon Eastern. So just accommodating some travel schedules. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you Monday at noon, live on YouTube, right here on Deep Look. We'll see you then. By the way, Luka's never won an MVP. Embiid is who Evan was looking for.